Good morning, everybody. So it's not quite 9, but it looks like we have just about everybody. Last arrival time was supposed to be 8:20, so we think just a few stragglers might show up, maybe miss the beginning. But I'd like to bring it to an audience vote. If you want us to start early, all in favor? All opposed? Not a single brave soul. That was your moment right there. So, welcome to the Concord-Carlisle High School commencement for the class of 2020. I'd like to just start by thanking everybody who made this day possible. Lots of volunteers, lots of hard work and planning, and we're thrilled to be here. And I'd like... So, if able, I kindly ask you to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please remain standing for the playing of the national anthem. Please be seated. So for those in attendance, what you don't know is typically in a year, we all know this is anything but typical, we have 3 graduation rehearsals, and we pride ourselves on running a ceremony that is crisp, sharp, and efficient. We had no practice, and so I would ask a couple things. 1, we're going to have to give a few more directions, and 2, it might not be as crisp as in years past, but I think I can speak for my team. We're just happy to be here with all of you. So, it is now my privilege to introduce to you the Superintendent of Concord Public Schools and Concord-Carlisle Regional School District, Dr. Lori Hunter.
Good morning. I don't think I have ever been so glad to see students in person as I am this morning. I want to welcome parents, faculty, members of the Concord-Carlisle Regional School Committee, Principal Mastrullo, Assistant Principals Miller and Stahl, other distinguished guests, and most importantly, members of the class of 2020. First of all, take it all in. You are together. I'll say it again, you are together. No screens, no electronics, you're not in your bedrooms, but here at the place you called home for the last 4 years. There is so much to say that I found myself almost speechless. What an extraordinary journey it's been to get here. As a parent of a graduating senior and as a professional, there has never been a more intimate, intense, emotional road to a graduation ceremony. As with so much over the past 4 months, we hoped and we fought for it. It was worth the wait and is even more special because of that journey. In April, I shared the story of what I call my daily rides to nowhere, to get a break from the guest room of my house and my laptop and feel like there was still a big world out there, albeit one that was primarily closed and different from many of those drives. On my own, I took a predictable, familiar route and looked forward to the place I was headed. When my daughter started joining me, the drives became less about the destination and more about the route we took. Not surprisingly, we discovered unknown treasures close to home that would have been completely missed if we had continued with my approach of worrying only about the destination. The past 6 months took you from the planned, predictable destination to this unexpected route that included pain, hardship, isolation, and loss. And yet, I am filled with so much hope today as I see you all out there. I've had the absolute privilege of being closer to this graduating class than any before, and think it's important to share what I saw. Compassion. You cared for one another through both intangible and intangible ways in a consistent way across many varied events, both difficult and in celebration. Advocacy. You spoke up for what you wanted and you continue to fight for what you believe to be right. Empathy. You work to take care of others, often in a first-hand way. Generosity. You have given your time, your money, and yourselves over and over again. Authenticity. You are not afraid of hard conversations. You tell it like it is in a way that is able to be heard, but not incite anything other than improvement. Resiliency. You handled adversity. You handled the changing situation and will continue to into even more unpredictability. Think about that. Aren't these lifelong goals? You took what could have been a missed opportunity and bettered yourselves toward outcomes most of us have to work hard at as adults. What hope this gives me in your many opportunities to come. It's cliche to say that the world will be a better place with all of you in it, but I see that reality, given what you showed us while you were here. All of those ways you thought you'd be successful are now enhanced with how you've grown. These are life lessons you've already learned. You demonstrate what poet Maya Angelou so artfully described. I've learned that people will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. I know you'll carry that forward because it is what you are leaving behind here with us. Best wishes to all of you in what comes next.
Class of 2020 awards. 2 awardees to be recognized for demonstration of the qualities of 2 of their classmates who we lost tragically, but both leave an inspiring legacy for all of us. I ask that the 2 recipients stand when your name is called. The Chase Bjork Memorial Award goes to a student who demonstrates the characteristics of open-heartedness, empathy, and kindness. The recipient of this award is Emily Harrington. The Dylan Smith Memorial Award goes to a student who demonstrates kindness, empathy, and friendships that cross boundaries of background and race. The recipient of this award is C.J. King. So good morning again and welcome. And I'm thankful for the opportunity to speak to the graduating class of 2020. Today is the first day the state would allow for an outdoor graduation ceremony, and I made one request to the heavens above, and that was no rain. I'm glad it's not raining, and I'm so sorry I didn't ask for cooler temperatures. When I was writing this speech, I was struggling for a title. I wanted a title fitting for the time period. I wanted a title that truly captures and symbolizes the time period since our departure from school on March 12th until today. Choosing a title to capture this time proved more difficult than anticipated, so I'm going to elicit some help from the audience. You have 2 titles to choose from, and I ask that you select the one that you feel truly captures the time frame between March 12th and today. First title, There Is No Script. I think it summarizes nicely the idea that even the best made plans can be foiled by life. The second title to choose from is Dumpster Fire 2020. It requires no explanation. So we're going to do it by a show of hands. If you want There Is No Script, raise your hand. If you want Dumpster Fire 2020, raise your hand. Dumpster Fire 2020 wins the day. It's been a tough spring for everyone involved. There are no wins and losses when it comes to COVID-19, only degrees of loss. We have all experienced the full range of emotions during this time: sadness, crying, anger, frustration. And it's important to note that humor and laughing are emotions that also help us deal with loss. You lost the end of your senior year and all the celebrating that goes with it. You deserve to celebrate. You earned the fun that typically accompanies the end of high school. It's not fair. However, it is important that you emerge from this experience more resilient than bitter. There are a few silver linings one can draw from this time period, but there are some. I'm speaking for myself and my two beautiful daughters, May and Brooke, but I would wager what I'm about to say likely speaks for many. This time period forced us on something we all needed. Before this spring, my life in many ways was like a car careening down the highway at 100 miles an hour. You wake up at 4:30 to exercise, wake up my kids, middle-aged kids, at 5:15 to get ready for school, out the door by 6, long day for both, driving home at 6, 7 at night, sometimes later. So we needed to slow down. We also needed more quality time as a family. But being together 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, for months on end, I think we could all settle for just a little bit less, actually. Just a little. Even my dog, before this spring, my dog loved to go for walks. In true story, when I grab the leash, my dog now hides. He's just like, when are you going to go back to work? I just want to chew the couch here. Students, in addition to forcing you to slow down and allowing more quality time with your family, the experience gave you the ultimate mic drop. Let me explain. Every generation talks about how they had it harder than previous generations. You might have found yourself on the receiving end of this phrase: when I was a kid. That phrase is never followed by a compliment and usually followed by a lecture how your parents are telling you their life was harder than yours. My parents would say, when I was a kid, I walked to school uphill, both ways, in the snow. In some instances, the generational claims of a harder path are true. Growing up during the Great Depression was harder than growing up in the 2000s. Recently, I was engaged in this generational tug-of-war with my children. I was just sharing a story about my father. He broke his back in a motorcycle accident when I was little, and the doctor told all of us that it's important that he moves during the healing process. He can't just sit in a chair or lay in bed all day. He must move. To ensure my father was following doctor's orders, my mother forbid anyone to change the TV channel for my father. My mother would say, "I don't care what he says, Michael, don't change the channel." My father, a veteran of the Army, would literally army crawl to the television to change it. My daughters laughed, and then my 12-year-old said, "That's so mean, Dad. Why didn't you just give Papa the remote?" I said, "Remote. When I was a kid, there was no remote. You had to physically turn the dial. We had 3 channels, and it had an antenna that if it broke, you literally had to put tinfoil on it to make it come in a little better." So then my 14-year-old says, "Well, were there dinosaurs too, Dad? Avoid T-Rex on that long journey to school?" But if nothing else, students, this time period did give you the ultimate mic drop in these generational squabbles. I mean, I lived through a pandemic is kind of a conversation ender. How do you rebut that? Imagine one day in the future your nieces and nephews or your own children are busy complaining about some task they must complete or an obligation they must attend to. It might sound something like this: "I have to walk all the way to the store?" And you might say, "It sounds hard. I lived through a pandemic." "I don't want to clean my room. It sounds really challenging. I actually lived through a pandemic." "I have too much homework." "Yeah, I actually lived through a pandemic." "You don't understand. It's so much harder now." "No, I actually lived through a pandemic. I get it." What you have endured these past few months is really, really hard. And I will say we're not out of the woods yet. And some days it's easy to succumb to despair. It might feel like things will never get better. It might feel like they will never be the same again. But they will. And history has taught us that. World War I coincided with the 1918 flu pandemic. The flu alone killed 50 million people worldwide. That decade was followed by the Roaring '20s, a decade of economic growth and widespread prosperity. The Great Depression of the '30s, followed by World War II, the years following started an era of prosperity that largely marches on to this day. Life is not a linear line of peace, happiness, and prosperity. There are peaks and valleys, spikes and troughs. Whether a prosperous or bleak time period, it often seems as though it will never end, but it will. Things will get better. I believe that the 300 plus students before me are among the best educated, most empathetic, kind, productive, creative, resourceful, and now resilient group of graduates this world has ever seen. And I believe in future prosperity because I believe in you. My final thought. I want to thank you. I want to tell you that we are proud of you. I want to tell you that we have missed you. When students are removed from our daily life, this quickly becomes just a job. I've been a principal at 3 schools for the past 14 years, and every year I make a point, after April break, to focus solely on the seniors until you leave, to connect with as many kids as possible. It fills me up, it keeps you grounded, and reminds you why you do the work. And I miss that, as did all of us, and that is our loss. But I'm happy we can tell you today that we missed you, and hopefully this graduation ceremony demonstrates that. I want to leave you with a quote from a dear friend of mine who died this year. His name was Johnny Lee Davenport. He performed Thurgood Marshall at our school this year in a play. He was an accomplished actor, a Vietnam veteran, a black man from the South who overcame racism in all areas of his life. He's a dear friend, and we would always connect during this time of year. I would write my speech and read it to him. A brilliant man, he would always offer sage advice. But every time we parted, he would always say, hold a happy thought. So as I address you for the last time, I will leave you with his simple parting words, hold a happy thought. Good luck. I now welcome the president of the senior class, Cindy Lee.
Sorry that took so long. Good morning, everyone. For the 3rd time today, welcome to the CCHS Class of 2020 graduation. On Thursday, March 12th, 2020, right before the end of the school day, Mr. Masul gave an announcement telling us to bring all our things home just in case of school closure. Oh, right. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Many of us, including myself, just laughed it off. No way we'd be lucky enough to have school canceled. Little did we know that that day would be our last day of high school, ever. Pretty soon, the days of quarantine turned into weeks. The weeks of Zoom classes turned into months until the gutting realization hit us. Our senior spring was gone, and there was nothing we could do about it. Of course, as hopeful seniors, many of my classmates were distraught, while others were indifferent, believing that with so many terrible things going on, losing our senior spring just wasn't a big deal in the grand scheme of things. Whether right here in our community or across the world, humankind has suffered so much loss at the hands of COVID-19. Many people have lost their loved ones, their jobs, and their hopes for the future. Because of this, it didn't seem right to feel sad about losing the rest of our senior year. It wasn't until after I listened to an NPR podcast that I thought differently. I realized I was wrong, and that it's okay for us to feel disappointed. Our pain doesn't go away because someone else's pain is greater. All the tragedy of the pandemic doesn't discount or diminish our loss. Our high school graduation is important. It marks the end of one chapter and the beginning of another. It's a time where all of us graduates can take a moment to recognize our accomplishments, reminisce about our memories, and finish high school with a little pomp and circumstance. Senior spring was taken from us, and we're never going back to the classrooms and breakout spaces of CCHS. But now we've been given an opportunity today that most class of 2020 students haven't had, a chance to come together in person for the last time and graduate. Today, we graduate from high school. We are the first and hopefully the last class to graduate during a global pandemic. And let's face it, surviving a global pandemic is no small task. All of us are here in one piece, as far as I can tell. But what are we going to do with our incredibly good fortune? Today we venture out into the real world, ready and eager to effect change. Today we took on new challenges and responsibilities and embark on new adventures. But what are the challenges we should tackle first exactly, and how? We have experienced facing difficult questions, and this pandemic has challenged us to confront more. Do I commit to this college that I've never visited before? Do I take a gap year next year? Do I have coronavirus, or is it just allergies? Do I fix my sleep schedule, or keep scrolling through TikTok even though I'm pretty sure the birds are chirping outside? See? Tough questions. And some real tough questions too. What can I personally do about racial and social justice? Have I been a true ally or a performative ally? Is it worth voting in a system as messed up as ours today? But overcoming adversity isn't new for us. We were born into a world of chaos in the aftermath of 9/11, raised during the rise of social media and rapid advancement of new technologies, some beneficial and some harmful. We lived through financial crises, deadly hurricanes, super droughts, wildfires, murder hornets, and a nation so deeply divided it's hard to feel hopeful at all. We would be wrong, though, to think we have no reason to hope. In the wake of every crisis, no matter how grim the outlook, there's always an opportunity for those who actively seek it. We have the potential and capacity to change this broken system, and each of us sitting here today will have to figure out the best way we personally can contribute to this positive change. The unusual circumstances of our last year of high school make us uniquely prepared to face the world. Change isn't coming. It's happening right now. We witnessed before our very own eyes how social media posts transformed into a global Black Lives Matter movement, reaching people at every corner of the planet. This powerful message of equality has helped spur initiatives at CCHS and countless thoughtful and difficult discussions between classmates. The initiatives include the Cue the Culture podcast run by CC's Intersections Club, as well as the Smith Family's GoFundMe for new racial justice programs at CCHS, which has brought in over 260 donations, raising over $20,000. In addition to funding for racial justice, the new awards announced today will recognize students for years to come and will continue to honor the memories of Dylan Smith and Chase Bjork, who would have been graduating alongside us. Being in our position, graduating from CCHS now, is not something we can take for granted. Although they may not be walking across the stage, they remain in our thoughts and hearts as we continue onto our lives beyond high school. We need to recognize our privilege, we need to use our voices, we need to be brave and fight for what we believe in. Together we have the power to make an impact and to overcome any challenges thrown our way. After all, we've done it before. Despite the challenges of our past several months, we also have a right to be proud of our class. Our outstanding sports teams have won state championships and broken school records. We've earned countless academic awards and art awards, put on meaningful and spectacular theater productions, and debated moot court case after moot court case with poise and skill. Together, we've accumulated 27,583.67 hours of community service, which divided by the number of people in our class is about 100 hours per person, well above the 40-hour requirement for graduation. And let us remember to thank the people who helped us master the challenges. On behalf of the class of 2020, I would like to thank our parent representatives, Julia Nastos and Chrissy Honan, and the Parents Association for everything they've done to make our high school experience a great one. I would also like to thank the administration for their time and hard work, especially during these trying and unprecedented times, and for giving me the opportunity to speak today. To the amazing CCHS teachers, to the amazing CCHS teachers, words cannot express how much we appreciate your guidance and support. We are forever indebted to you. Your kindness, tireless work ethic, and dedication to our learning inspired us all. You've all made a big difference in our lives, and I hope we didn't drive you too crazy. Finally, to the families here with us today. Well, actually the 2 members of your immediate family that you picked to be at graduation today. Sorry, Richard. Thank you for your endless encouragement and support through the good and bad times. Our accomplishments and successes are an extension of the sacrifices you've made for us. It couldn't have been easy raising high schoolers, and it's possible that we occasionally get a bit wrapped up in our own adventures and forget to say thank you. I know I'm guilty of this too. So class of 2020, please join me in taking a moment to turn around and give a cheer of thanks to the people here with you today. While the future is uncertain and filled with our college's vague fall reopening schedules, I, for one, cannot wait to see what life brings next. Thank you.
Please welcome to the stage Mr. Peter Atlas, who retired after 32 years of dedicated service to CCHS. Peter Atlas will be giving the faculty address.
I apologize. I think I misread the email about the mask. Thank you, Mr. Mastrullo. My heartiest congratulations to the class of 2020. I have to hand it to you. In the 32 years I've been teaching at CCHS, best senior skip concept ever. As is traditional during graduations, I strongly suspect that a number of you are playing COVID bingo. So let's just get all those words out of the way so you can actually pay attention to what I'm about to say. Unprecedented. Flatten the curve. Super spreader. Uncertain times. Social distancing. That, we got a winner. Congratulations to the winners. You can pick up your gifts at the court booth. The court booth, now wherever the school committee convenes, and I know that none of you get that joke, but court, I've been having fun with your name in front of audiences for decades, and thank you for being such a good sport. My friends, as you graduate from CCHS, I am retiring. I feel like, in a way, I too am graduating from this school. After 4 years of high school, leaving this way must feel incredibly anticlimactic. Trust me, I understand. After 34 years in public education, I feel the same way too. So with that said, I will begin my actual speech. 70 pounds ago, there came forth upon this district a new school teacher, conceived in the 60s and dedicated to the proposition that if A equals B and B equals C, then A equals C. My goal in this speech is to get you to laugh a little, to think a little, to wonder a little, and to hope a little. As this is such an interesting time in our shared history, I want to talk a little about both the past and the future and not spend too much time on the here and now. Mired as we are in a disruptive present, and more scarily unmoored as we are to a certain future, I present to you the thesis that every generation thinks of themselves as modern, and every generation has to learn to deal with tragedy and horror. My grandparents' generation was thoroughly modern. They learned to fly, for God's sakes, for the first time in human history. They broke long-established social order rules. They wore dresses above the knee and drank cocktails. My immigrant Russian Jewish grandmother was a flapper. The other one was a member of the Socialist Workers' Party. Their lives weren't in black and white like the pictures. Life was gorgeously complex and differentiated and new. There was anesthesia for the first time, and surgery, and an understanding of germs. They were completely modern, and they had to deal with the plague of the Spanish influenza and the horror of World War I at the same time, as was mentioned. My parents' generation was modern. They invented the transistor, discovered DNA, landed on the moon. The very concept of the study of the transfer of information, that which led directly to the invention and explosive use of the computer, was born in their generation. But they had to deal with the horror that was World War II and the plague that was polio. My generation knows we are modern. We again broke long-standing, established social order rules. Here I am, an out, married, gay man talking to a group of children. I can't get across to you how revolutionary every single word in that last sentence is. My generation created the personal computer, and we had to deal with the plague of HIV/AIDS, so some of us have had to live through 2 pandemics. My friends, it's your turn. You will get through this horrible time like my grandparents' generation did, like my parents' generation did, and like those of my friends who are left and I did. It will scar you and shape you as it did us, but you will get through it. We will get through it. Regarding the past, I might have a different perspective than you. I am, after all, 91 years old on Venus. On Earth, my date of birth is closer to the year in which Queen Victoria died than it is to today. A fact that I was quite disturbed when I figured it out, the first time I figured it out. I think most of you were born in 2002. Let's call that a lifetime ago. That is, math teacher always, I'm defining a unit called a lifetime, by which I mean your lifetime. So 9/11 happened about a lifetime ago. A lifetime before that is 2 lifetimes ago, was my first year teaching. Does that put it in perspective for you? 2.5 lifetimes ago, in 1977, while I was, as you have just been, a senior in high school, humankind sent out into the universe 2 little robotic instruments called Voyager 1 and Voyager 2. They showed us our first real views of Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, and Neptune. Today, as you graduate 2.5 lifetimes later, they have passed out of the heliosphere. They are in true interstellar space. They are not bound to our sun at all. 2.5 lifetimes from now, when you're my age, they'll be 250 billion miles away. Humans have made something that has traveled into the universe 250 billion miles, or will have. That in itself is extraordinary. Understanding the past is important, but thinking about and making the future come true is more fun. I marvel at the things that my generation have done, and even more at the things you and your generation are about to do. Here are my predictions, such as they are. I expect that 2.5 lifetimes from now, when you're my age, we'll have sent a probe to Europa, the oceanic and ice-covered moon of Jupiter, and we'll have perhaps discovered the first extraterrestrial life. I expect that one of you, perhaps one of you here, will for the first time understand what dark matter is, and come up with a theory that explains the 95% of the universe that we know nothing about. I expect that your children will not understand what the word cash means, although I hope and pray your children will still understand what the word privacy means. I expect that a woman in your generation will become president of the United States, although I will keep working my hardest to try to make sure that a woman of my generation becomes the first president of the United States. I expect that your generation will finally succeed where my generation has failed, in creating a society in which the black and brown body is cherished and protected as an integral part of the we when we say we. I expect with the passing of my generation, we will no longer ever again have to hear the ridiculous excuse, oft in the news while you've been in high school. It was blah-de-blah many years ago. We didn't know any better. I'm sorry, but I was alive in the 60s and in the 70s and in the 80s and in the 90s and the thousands and the teens. It was easy to know better. All you had to do was pay attention. And if people today said that they didn't know better then, it was because then they willfully chose not to know better. I expect that you are going to be the first generation that as you get older will start texting in all caps because you're losing your hearing. I expect, to quote one of the heroes from my youth, that we will be judged, that we will succeed in creating a society in which we are judged by the content of our character, not by the color of our skin. In the meantime, I look forward to living in a country in which lynching is a federal crime. It isn't. Europa, dark matter, social and economic equity, these are the things that I think about when I wonder about the future. But my view of the future isn't important. The future will be what you all, individually and collectively, construct out of what we have left you. In these past 4 years, the faculty here has strived to help you build the tools you'll need to face the world. I hope we have also helped you to begin to build the tools you'll need to change it for the better. How does one change the world? The most important lessons from my youth are: think globally, but act locally, and speak truth to power. Of course, you all being who you are, I should add, and if you're the power, listen carefully for the truth. As you go out into the world, I offer you the advice of another of my heroes, Mohandas Gandhi. He said the best way to find yourself is to lose yourself in the service of others. You know, Newsweek magazine once described my alma mater, Oberlin College, as having graduates who do good, but not well. I hope in these past 4 years, we have inspired in you the desire to do good and given you some of the tools to do it. I have spent my career in the service of others. I can assure you, doing so leaves one proud and satisfied. Now we forge ahead into an uncertain future. As my public service comes to an end, or at least morphs into something new, your ability to be of service to others is just beginning. Knowing you, collectively and individually, I find that a very comforting thought. Congratulations, class of 2020, and thank you for your invitation to offer my thoughts on your commencement. Like my retirement, your graduation is not an ending. Commencement means beginning. So in my last word at CCHS, I bid us commence.
Now the moment we've all been waiting for. To present the members of the class of 2020, I'd like to introduce advisors Hannah Bruno and Josh Reed. Let's give them a warm welcome. A few details. We'll call you up by a row and just stand on the cones, just remain 6 feet apart. Your name will be called. Please grab a diploma and walk through. You'll get your photo taken down there at that cone, and you'll have an opportunity, if you want, to take your mask down while the picture is taken. Ms. Stahl and Mr. Miller will prompt each row, and we're going to try to keep it going so we can move through this. We have 300 plus kids here. So, without further ado, Ms. Bruno and Mr. Reed.
Are we ready? All right. First row, you can all line up by cones.
at the beginning when I said we really didn't have time to practice and it might not be quite as efficient and sharp? I think this is case in point. So, and my instructions weren't very good. So we're going to do an entire row at a time. Yep, so we'll line up, and then Mr. Miller and Ms. Stahl will prompt row 2 when you're ready. So good.
Cynthia Shinyi Lee. Mahir Singh. Kenneth Liu. Sarah Jane McMorrow. Luke Poutler. Emily Keeley Harrington. Aliana Devlin Potter. Christina Caroline Ayala. Peter Charles Albanese. Alana Alavi. Liesel Allen. Patricia Amuzgar. Benjamin Francis Anastos. Ashley Arroyo. Janice Ansari Dankwa. Patricia Lucy Atwood. Ella Baker Puccini. Cleo Baldemus. Margaret Anna Barry.
Andrew Christopherson Bates. Oliver Baines. William Oscar Burgoyne. Skylar Bell. Caitlin Ben. Margaret Nell Bestoff. Connor Betancourt. Henry Bex. Haley Byer. Abigail Emma Bond. Jack Hines Bowen. Colleen O'Sullivan Boyle. Samantha Clark Brown. Sydney Brown. Sydney Elizabeth Broxson. Tanner Kenneth Buckaloo. Luis Burgos. Eden Grace Burles.
Jonah Asher Burnham. Sandra Marquez Buxton. Paige Campagna. Mackenzie Joanne Campbell. Emily Catherine Capafreddi. Gretchen Macaulay Carr. Erin Nicole Carroll. Leighton Carter. Catherine Bianca Casey. Sophia Casimiro Nunez. William Anderson Chaffin. Kyra Chen. Richard Trung. Charles Aplipio Clark. Emily Michaela Connors. Aiden Michael Cornforth. Kelly Ann Costello. Elsa May Cuvion. Sabella Catherine County.
Yeah. Charles Allen Crounce. William Jerome Crounce. Aiden Joseph Daly. Alexander Blake Davidson. Carolina Marguerite Davidson. Nicholas Cameron Davidson. Nicole Irini DeBlois. Nicholas DeSobral. Jonah Stephen DeMarco. Karsten Cornel DeMay. Felix Dersey. Carson Sean Detweiler. Jeffrey Ryan Dillon. Ava Mara Dixon. Elise James Dehoney. Mason Dorr. Jamie Elizabeth Drew. Selena Naz Drury. Abigail Gert Dudley. Eleni Dunbar. Max Francis Easterday. Sophia Anna M.D. Jardine.
Alec Clayton Ernst. Eloise Sinclair Evans McKenzie. Clenny Mendonca Avora. Catherine Mary Faber. Davis Farrow. Edward Whitfield Feather. Ava Ferguson. John Edward Farron V. Celia Jane Flory. Violet Eve Francis. Isabella Frangules. Tatiana Gabriela Frazier. Madeline Irene Gage. Andrew Gow. Lauren Grace Gardner. William Theodore Garrison. Jacob Allen Getchman. Christian Gemelli.
Jake Robertson Gilbert. Frankie Girgus. Sarah Germa. Mary Lucinda Gore. Arohi Goyle. Madeline May Goldberg. Adrian Francis Good. Amy Elizabeth Goodhue. Casey John Granahan. Charles Grundy. Taylor Gashu. Cole Alexander Hamilton. Genevieve Bella Hammer. Georgia Elizabeth Hargraves. Daniel Aiden Harrington. James Harvey. Wells Chamberlain Hatch.
Liam Reed Havens. Aurora Haggerty. Lila Hempel Edgers. David Riley Honan. Sarah Hoover. Aaliyah Faith Hosford. George Patrick Howes. Midaku Hoyt Rouse. Julia Annabelle Hubbard. Keelan Roger Lawrence Hughes. Alexander Stewart Hunt. Charles Hutchinson. Liam Thomas Hutton. Marissa Irene E. Miles Inman. Benjamin James Jakanowski. Chase Artusia James. Marie Jeglum James.
Melissa Yumeng Zhang. Anna Isabel Jimenez. Lucia Grace Jimenez. Naima Yohim. Lucas Daniel Johnson. Lucy Ann Joseph. Amelia Margaret Carroll. Chloe Ann Kidder. Clyde McDonald King. Avery Elizabeth Kirkpatrick. Christina Maria Klinoff. Madeline Koenig. Christina Pandema. Morgan Elizabeth Labadini. Cameron Gregory Ladd. Sophia Nolani LaRue. Kirthan Nicholas Lathrop.
Megan Lee. Christopher Francis Lombardi. Olivia Claire Longmire. Elizabeth Crooks Lopret. Morgan Ann McPhee. Jack Deverett Maloney. Sorry, Jack. Will Mara. Catherine Anise Marquis. Ella Teresa Marama. Harriet Martin. Alexandra Marie McCardle. Brianna Marie McCluskey. Gabriel McGeough. Ilana Miller. Ava Ruth Moore. Jackson Dennis Morgan. Jeb William Morgan. Cameron Mustafi.
Abigail Faith Mueller. Madeline Joy Mueller. Olivia Grace Mueller. Brett Ireland Murphy. Ryan Patrick Murphy. Mary Kate Murphy. Caroline Claire Naris. Isaiah Alvin Naroff. Camille Ann Nadeau. Margaret Ann Narrow. Matthew Nah. Hazel Christine Nickel. Owen Charles Nordzai. Landon Alexander Newsman Clark. Sadie Elizabeth O'Neill. Paula Antonia Olgalde Carmona. Una Oljachik. Natalie Lake Owen. Olivia Claire Palmer. William Lucas Newell Parker.
Cole Frederick Pescucci. Annabelle Sun Posture. Mackenzie Acadia Pavlik. Anna Christina Piccioni. Andre Anderson Pohl. Ellie Louise Puritan. Margaret Rose Rabbit. Gustavo Diego de Oliveira Lopez Raimundo. Elizabeth Rennert. Skylar Holden Rice. Owen Michael Richardson. Peter John Richardson. Carter John Riddick. Ava Marie Robert. Darren Conrad Roberts, Jr. Pablo Rodriguez Boz. Evan Cheney Rovelli. Nicholas Morrill Rye.
Emma Catherine Sabin. May Claire Sabin. Benjamin Daniel Santos. Isabella Rose Saraceno. Samitha Satish Kumar. Nathaniel Thomas Savory. Natalie Frances Cloudy Schnadig. Courtney Rose Sapuka. David Samuel Shapiro. Emily Wilkes Sheehan. Gabrielle Shea. Gabriella Emma Shee. Tyler Brandon Small. Declan Kelly Smith. Devin Christopher Smith. Nathan Anthony Smith. Maisie McCown Spofford. Alyssa Lee Stanton. Duncan James Stevenson. Luke Anthony Stalker.
Ray Stope. Timothy Anders Swain. Heather Sesniak. Yusuf Ahmed Tamio. Tammy. Kai Darren Tang. Lee Justin Tang. Maria Elena McNulty Terhune. Emma Sinclair Thomas. Joseph Dallas Tucker. Andrew George Upham. Grady Thorleaf Van Orden. Paula Contessa Vasiliadis. Fallon Catherine Vaughn. Hugo Villavicente. Isabella Patricia Rose Venn. Olivia Jane Walton. Amanda Lan Wong. David Chuachong Wong. Soren Watson.
Ryan Earl Waxler. Xavier Nicholas Weathers. Liza Marie Webster. Macy Gail Wernz. Holly Claire West. David Allen White. Ella Aubrey White. Emerson Boyd White. Nathaniel Ios White. Lucas Gray Wilbur. Emma Jane Wilcoxon. Honor Beasley Williams. Skylar Grace Winstanley. Tess Alexandra Wallaceau. Zihan Zhu. Mark Yang. Adam Noah Zimmerman Diaz.
How about one big, nice, loud round of applause for the class of 2020? All right, I get some folks making it back to their seat. And before I officially declare the class of 2020 officially graduated, I do ask that we're going to try to do an orderly exit by row, and so we'll do our best. And we're just waiting for these last class of 2020 graduates to make their way to their seat. So we might as well use this time while one young man is running to thank them and applaud them again. Class of 2020. Graduates, you may move your tassels from the right side to the left side. And now with a hearty congratulations. Congrats, you are a high school graduate. Group 1 exiting through the same entrance you came in is row A, F, and K. Thank you, everybody, and have a great day.